Hello. So for this week's podcast, I chose to listen to the Safe Patient Handling and Mobility podcast from the VA, and I felt like it was very informative and very important to healthcare as a healthcare worker myself. So Dr. Hilton is an associate of the VA. She's was there to talk about how in her facilities and where she has worked, in her extensive background of healthcare, how they have used patient mobility devices to help better take care of patients and be able to prevent injury to themselves. So one thing that Dr. Hilton talked about that I felt like was very prevalent to me was that as healthcare workers, it feels like we are expected to, well, obviously we are expected to care for our patients, but it feels like we're expected to go above and beyond in ways that may not be safe to us. We're expected to pick up our patients, we're expected to move our patients, pick up in the form of like scoot up, like not like pick up, but still just things that can obviously injure someone. They stress proper lifting mechanics, they stress, protecting our backs, but unfortunately, that just isn't always the case. I have injured myself at work with a patient who was falling. It was completely my choice to help them back up with another nurse, and I did. That was my choice. That is on me. But on our floor, it was a problem, but we weren't allowed to use our mobility lift, which is a very important tool that Dr. Hilton also touches on in the podcast. So a patient lift is either attached to the ceiling or it's a self unit that you bring back and forth to patients' rooms. Basically what happens is there's a sling that you put underneath the patient and then you put up in the hooks, and it's like a little harness that they sit in, and once you have it under them and you have it hooked up to the machine or to the one at the ceiling, whatever you're using, it is motorized. So you just push a button, they're lifted up off of whatever surface they're on, like for example if they're in a chair, and it moves them over into a bed, which is great because it allows patients a new degree of mobility that they may not have without it. It allows them to be able to get out of bed and to sit up in a chair for the day when maybe before that wasn't an option, which is great to promote freedom, to promote independence, and it's also great for our backs. So I worked in a private home health setting. When I was 16, I helped take care of a paralyzed lady. She had a stroke, and she had no use in her legs and very minor use in her arms and hands. So obviously she was not able to get up and walk. However, she still lived at home because they were able to have these motorized lifts. They had them, her and her husband had one in the living room to where we were able to wheelchair her in to the living room, under the lift, have the lift her up, move her over, and put her in her chair in the living room so she could sit in the living room with her husband during the day. They had beautiful bay windows, so she was able to experience life instead of just sitting in a bed or being forced to live in a nursing home where they have the equipment. She had another one in her bedroom, so then we were able to, transfer her out of the chair into the wheelchair and take her to her bedroom and lift her and put her in her bed at night. It just allows a whole degree of freedom and mobility for patients like her, people like her who didn't have that mobility on their own. It's also essential to the healthcare worker because she is definitely a heavier set lady, and I would have severely injured myself had I tried to pick her up and move her, and it obviously would have been very unsafe for her and very unsafe for me. So mobility devices provide us with that extra protection for our safety, our health. They provide us with freedom for the patient. They provide the patient with so much more life, and just are very important to the healthcare setting. One thing that I personally kind of thought about after this podcast was that I've actually, unfortunately, have run into this issue quite a lot where floors, certain areas and places, they don't like to use the lifts because they think they are a safety issue, which unfortunately can be a safety issue when your workers, the people who are using them, are not properly trained on how to use them. We had received no training on how to use this lift. So obviously it was good that we didn't use it, but it's sad that it's there. It's a working piece of equipment, and it can allow patients so much more mobility, and which can positively impact many aspects of their health, from physical to mental. Physical, it'll help them avoid getting sores from being in the same position in bed on their backs all day. Even when being rotated, bed sores still happen. It helps to get up and move where that pressure is being applied on your body. And mentally, because you can pick them up, put them in a wheelchair, and you can get them outside of that room, outside of that bed, which has been proven to have a very great benefit. I've seen it myself on a person's mental health. So, and all in all, I think that patient mobility lifts are a wonderful thing. And I think that Dr. Hilton made a lot of very good points about how we as healthcare workers want the best for our patients and are expected to care for our patients in the best way. And that is one thing that enables us to do that.